Happy New Year.
Hey
Welcome back
man.
to the Market of
Yeah.
the Moment with Michael Oldham, Chris Madrid. What's up, Chris?
Yeah. Hey man. Trying to, stay warm in Texas.
I know. Went and got all cold on us again last night.
So great. I've been waiting all year for this weather.
And I walked into about a 45 to 50 degree gym this morning for
Oh,
practice,
nice.
for this basketball practice I'm helping with.
Woo.
So I barely took my coat off for practice.
That was brisk, huh?
Well, anyway, here we find ourselves the first week of 2022.
Yeah, man.
We promised you, whether you wanted us to or not, that we would be back.
We'll be back. That's
And
right.
here we are. We're going to be back for 52 weeks, 52 weeks or somewhere, something like that.
Something like
We
that.
might get one off here and there. But this is the Market of the Moment update for week of January 3rd, 2022. We're basically going to just wind down the 2021, introduce what's starting, go on in 2022. I know Chris has some interest rate news and some things he wants to talk about. Then we're going to kind of get into some 2022 forecasts and those things. So, Chris, let's take it away. We're talking a little bit about mortgage rates before we
Yeah.
came on. Maybe you could, I guess it was a week before the end of the year, a week before Christmas was our last update.
Yeah.
Seems like they were 3.1-ish to
Yeah.
3.
Three. Yeah. We had pushed up from, the high twos at that point, mortgage rates for a 30-year fixed primary residence, right? Is kind of what we were talking about. So yeah, that was high twos, 2.9 to 3.1, something like that. And man, as we've kind of been saying, right? Literally, it happened overnight. Like it happened yesterday. I think there was like 3 or 4 rate changes throughout the day, which was just crazy. The bond market was just off the charts yesterday. But yeah, we saw rates move, almost a full 1/4% just yesterday. So, if we were hovering 2.9 to 3.1 a couple weeks ago, we're now and 3.2 to 3.5 at least on a 30-year fix. Again, it's not the end of the world, right? If you're going to purchase a home, you're still going to purchase a home at 3.5 or at 3%, right, or 4%. It's just going to cost a little bit more. But yeah, again, it's not the end of the world. But as we had kind of mentioned and expected, mortgage rates are starting to trend upward. The big news from yesterday was FHFA, right, which is the Federal Housing Finance Agency. They oversee Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are the investors that back conventional loans. So if you're purchasing a home doing 5 to however much percent down financing from a conventional standpoint, it's typically going Fannie or Freddie, right? Those are the common names we always hear. So last year they had announced that they were going to, or they wanted to start pulling back on how much they financed second homes and investment properties, and we saw a pretty significant hike in rates on those two products last year. Well, then it was like, I'm sure they got a lot of pushback. So then they were like, well, we're going to pump the brakes on that. We'll take it back, right? I'm sorry, we'll take it back. Essentially, is what happened. So then, rates on second homes and investment properties ended up coming back down a little bit. But they announced yesterday, and like I'm going to read a headline from one of the articles I follow. It says upfront fees on second home loans rising by 1.125 to 3.875, right? So there's a potential of 100 basis points up to 400 basis points on second home specifically, right? So that's not going to impact if you're buying a primary residence, but it will impact for sure if you're buying a second home, oftentimes a vacation property, right? A cabin, something on the beach, something in the mountains, something in another town where you have family that you want to have, a second home to go stay if you're frequently visiting family in Florida or wherever, right? So those are the ones that are going to be impacted. Now, that doesn't mean that rates are going to go from, let's just say 3% to 8 or 9%, right? That's not what it's going to happen. That's not what it's going to do. It's more the basis points. So there's 100 basis points. There's 100 basis point swings in between rates, right? So what it's going to potentially impact is, if you're, let's just call it second homes at 3.25, right? Like it was traditionally, it was pretty similar to a primary residence. That could go anywhere from 0.5% higher. So if primary residence rates are at, three, let's just call it 3.25, you could see an increase up to 3.75 or even 4% to more, right? So they're saying a potential 0.5% hit in rate up to like 1.5%. So again, that could be something for easy numbers. If you're at 3, you could be 4.5 on a second home, right? So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how much that's impacted. Now, this is going into effect loans purchased on April 1st, which means most likely, mortgage lenders and banks are going to start pricing this in end of February, March, right? So if you're on the fence about, or if you've been thinking about doing that, and maybe you've identified a property, you definitely need to jump on that, this month, latest next month, or else it's at the end of the day, it's just going to cost you more, right? Not the end of the world. It's not 10% by any, by or 8% or 6%, but it's going to end up costing you a little bit more.
Still going to get your second home. It's just taking your buying power away. So it might not be the second home that you wanted.
Yeah.
So
it could. Yeah. I mean, and again, at the end of the day, it may not impact your buying power at all. It's just going to end up costing you a little bit more per month.
Yep. Okay. Well, is that what you got today?
Yeah. So again, we talked about current mortgage rates, the trends, right? The consensus, I think, on something that you and I talked about earlier, and maybe even a slide that'll be coming up. Predictions are, rates are going to hover in that 3.25 to 3.5% for the next handful of months. Man, I'm expecting us to be pushing 4% closer to the end of the year, right? So the biggest thing is if we're going to be going over 4, may or may not, but we'll definitely, I think at least for this year, the below 3% rates are still available. So there is the opportunity to buy down. Oftentimes it's not beneficial. I was actually looking at a scenario yesterday where another mortgage company was quoting 2.75 on a 30-year fixed, and that came with 4.4, almost 4.5 points to buy down. So that's interest that you're paying now to have a lower rate over the life of the loan. But ultimately, if you don't stay in the home or keep the home for 30 years, and it's a moot point, and you just wasted essentially $15,000, right, or $20,000, whatever it is. So lower rates are always available. It just costs a lot more because that needle has moved kind of on the rate sheet from here. That rate is now down here, which has a significantly higher cost associated with it. So again, at this point, if you're hearing somebody saying, hey, I'm at 2.5% or 2.75, it may be, with very minimal cost, it may be too good to be true. Just because rates everywhere have gone up. So
yeah, we always advise our buyers, to let us look at, because Amy's mortgage experience, if you're not working on it, we're looking at it, because yes, there's always ways to hide that low rate. There's usually something in there you're paying for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you don't ever get something for nothing. So
you don't. Not what I want. All right, well, let's get into the housing market. So I'm not going to go over county by county today. I know a lot of those numbers are still rolling in. A lot of people are working on their end of the year numbers and things. So I do know the DFW inventory remains very low, depending on what county, the different counties we cover, whether it's Collin, Denton, Grayson, Tarrant, Dallas County. Anyway, the inventory is going to be anywhere from a 0.8 up to maybe 1.2 is probably going to be the highest in Dallas and Grayson County, most likely. Our sales price to list price still averaging, right around that 5% over ask. It's depending on what neighborhood you're in. That's an average. So that means there's going to be some selling at the 100%, some selling at 109 to 10% over. So just depending on where you're at, what neighborhoods, I've been running a lot of comps still in the Prosper, McKinney, Salina areas, and we're still seeing, depending on the property, we'll talk here in just a second, what differentiates some of that, but you're still seeing 101, 102%, up to 105 to 107. So as this infographic or this graphic shows, the demand for housing in the United States has reached a fever pitch. Generally, this time of year, it slows down, but that trend is not what's happening this year. Generally, in the winter months, it cools down, but it has stayed hot. I know you're probably still doing more loan apps normal for this time of year and things of that nature. So everybody always asks me, well, I guess, first of all, when you have low inventory, but you have all this foot traffic, buyers out, you're going to get natural price appreciation. We've all taken economics, supply and demand. And so the prices are going to continue to appreciate. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in a second, as far as numbers. Question I always get, is it the same, everywhere and at all price points? And as I mentioned earlier, no. You can go to different neighborhoods in the same city and get different pricing. And so that's why you need to get with a professional that can really run numbers, so that you're not paying 5% over asking in a neighborhood where you could get the house for 100% of asking. So there's no sense in paying more if you don't need to.
Right.
And then, pricing changes. If you go from 300,000 to the 500,000 to the 800,000, the market even changes in those areas. But I am finding even up in 800,000 to just under $1 million, you're still getting in multiple offer situations. We actually saw a home in Prosper that was listed at 550, and it actually sold for $700,000.
Yeah, it's, man, I from what I've seen, even into the pushing the 2 million mark, it's still multiple offers, man. A home's listed for 1.5, and it could go for 1.6 or 1.650 or 1.7.
Well, I'm still waiting for you to send that $2 million buyer my way. So
right.
I'll be ready to work with them. And then the last thing, right now in this market, not always the case, but in the current market, in this situation, if you got a pool, your house is probably going to sell for more than the home without a pool. And the reasoning is for that is, I know several pool builders, and before the end of 2021, they already had their 8 to 9 projects they were taking on for 2022 in the books. And so if you're buying a house today and you want a pool, you might not be getting that pool till 2025. So that is causing a lot of people to look for a home that already has an existing pool. So my example would be 2 days ago, I ran comps in a neighborhood in Prosper, and the home without a pool was selling, the homes were selling for about 100% of ask. And the homes with a pool were selling for 105 to 106% of ask. So obviously that's more multiple offers on that type of situation. Now just real quick, 2022 housing forecast put together. What does this coming year hold for the housing market? This is basically what the experts are saying. And when we say experts, we're talking about, Chris mentioned them earlier, Fannie and Freddie, May and Mac are, mortgage lenders. We're looking at NAR, the National Association of Realtors Statistics, and those types of things is where this information is coming from. So mortgage rates, as Chris has been talking about, mortgage rates are projected to rise in 2022. Chris is actually predicting, a little higher than what this is.
A Mortgage Bankers Association right there. MBA, Mortgage Bankers Association, is also predicting.
Exactly. So there, it's only the realtors that want people to feel good saying it's 3.5. But anyway, as Chris says, it's most likely clicking up to close to 4%, if not 4, this information
Mhm.
tells you the same thing. But although they're ticking up historically, you can see they are very low. What's the average? 8% is the average
Yeah,
over
last
the
50
last
years.
50 years.
Yeah.
So we're we're so low, you know,
Oh yeah.
so far below that. So home price forecast, everybody wants to know, you know, is my house going to go up the same 10 to 12% of value that it has the last 2 years? And then, you know, in the DFW market, it very well may. You
Yeah.
may very well may get another 12% or more this year. But on average, they are predicting about a 5% average price appreciation. Remember, these are nationwide.
Mhm.
So there's Chris's Mortgage Broker Association right there where they're supposed to be. And then projected sales is very strong. Expecting to sell, you know, more homes. What's 400,000 more homes? Probably
Mhm.
closer to 500,000 more homes in 2022 than
Yeah.
in 2021. So the housing market is predicted to remain very strong. I think you have to even break it down for our DFW market. I think all of these things probably, as far as price appreciation, projected sales, all of those were probably on the higher end
Yeah,
of all of
absolutely.
those. And it's just because of the economy here. PGA is moving here.
Mhm.
Just business after business after business is coming to Dallas and Texas in general.
Yeah.
So as we say every week, you can get your information in a lot of places. We appreciate you getting it from us. We're always free. Reach out to us individually. Amy and I's number is 469-369-0873. Chris is at 214-734-1531.
Yep.
Anything to finish up?
No, man, have a great week.
All right, man.
Make it
We got
happen. Make it happen. Hey, it's not too late. It's not too late to write down your goals for the year. So that's I always encourage my team, real estate partners that we work with, you know, write it down, right? That's like step number one.
Yep.
Things you want to accomplish, things you want to do this year. It's one thing to have them in your head, but there's like I forget what the percentage is, but it's a heavy percentage of you actually accomplishing your goal if you write it down. Like it goes up from 20% to like 60, right? If you write it down, or 80%, it's something ridiculous. But write them down, right? Set your goals. Don't just talk about them. Write them down. Put it on a board somewhere so that you can, you know, you can see it, and then get with, you know, get with friends, get with partners, get with whoever it is to make those things happen. Hold you accountable. Make sure you're doing your daily activities. Hey, whether that's real estate, whether that is photography, buying Bitcoin, whatever it is, write that stuff
Yeah.
down and make it happen. Do something great. And then be generous, right? I mean, that's one of the things that we always talk about. Oldham and I just again, we weren't giving these opportunities to hoard everything, right? Be generous, give. And you know, maybe more than you did in 2021, give more in 2022.
More you give, the more you get.
Yeah,
That is
man.
definitely the message.